Uh-oh, John. I think these latest sales numbers for Switch 2 might have Nintendo feeling a bit like Mario there behind you on the ground.
A bit deflated. Oh no!
Just laid out like an anime character. So here's the deal, everyone. A few weeks ago, we had a report from Circana saying that console sales for November were the worst they've ever been since 1995, and that both the Switch 2 and Switch 1 combined sold less than the Switch 1 did last year. And unfortunately, these latest numbers coming to us by way of the game business is not reflecting anything better. So here's what they have to say: that across November and December, sales in the US and Western countries in general were down 35% compared to what the Switch 1 was in its launch year for the same period, November and December, back in 2017. So to clarify, 35% down in the US, though in France it was similar, over 30% down, which is not great. Though the slightly good news is that it wasn't as bad in some other European territories, including the UK, where it was only down 16%. On the upside, kind of, is doing fine in Japan. Not quite as high as Switch 1, but close enough. That's not a big deal. But otherwise, it sounds like in Western markets, it's running into trouble. Now, the report did speak to a senior Nintendo employee, though unnamed, that attributed this to a complicated economic landscape mixed with higher price points and the absence of a major Western game. So, I think those are valid points. And, John, I want to get your kind of take on this real quick. What is your overall reaction to this? Like, did you see this coming? Is this a surprise to you? And do you think it makes sense that the Switch 2 is kind of stumbling a little bit at the end of the year?
I think there's nothing complicated about it. I think the economy just kind of sucks right now. All around, everybody's feeling the pain. We're not getting our pay raises that we probably need. We aren't. People are losing their jobs. The game industry's losing their jobs. Just a lot of chaos in the economy for the Western and all around the world, to be honest. And people are thinking more critically. It's like, do I need a fancy new console this weekend? It's like, I can't budget this. My kids, they want a new console. I'll just get this one that's on sale. They'll love it just the same.
Yeah. So you're agreeing with the senior Nintendo employee being that there were a complicated economic landscape as a factor for this.
Yeah, to a degree.
Yeah.
I do think there's some other things like the constantly rising prices of tech. I think the new Joy-Con are $100 now.
Yeah, what timing?
And I mean, that's not Nintendo being like, oh boy, I can't wait to raise the prices. That's more like the tech industry has been getting really hurt by tariffs, by AI RAM shortage. All these things are just making the worst gamer experience possible.
Yeah.
Just like, oh boy, I want to get a computer.
Yeah, good luck. That's gonna be real expensive real soon. So yeah, I think that's an unavoidable equation, or part of this equation, John. Yeah, the economy isn't doing great right now, despite what the stock market may say. On an individual basis, I think a lot of people are feeling the pain, and it's easy to, skip a console, when that's a pretty significant investment, not even counting the games, At the same time, though, there are, I think, other factors at play here, which the employee also mentioned. But I do want to say real quick before I dive too deep into this, and we won't keep this, we won't be recording for too long, I think. But the Switch 2 is still a massive success. Like, don't let other YouTubers out there fool you, or maybe even our own thumbnail. The Switch 2 is still a record-breaking console, and apparently, from what I've seen, is still on track to reach the 19 million unit sales within its first fiscal year that Nintendo had laid out originally. So it faltering toward the end of the year, by comparison to Switch 1, not a death sentence for the system by any stretch. It's still doing fine. It will be interesting to see what happens from here. Now, I do think part of the reason for also why I may be faltering is because it's been such a huge success. Most people who've really wanted a Switch 2, they have one. They were able to get it, especially outside of Japan. Like, beyond the first few days, John, it was not hard to get a Switch 2. Maybe even in the first few days. Like, everyone I know who wanted one got one, and I've heard that from pretty much everyone in our audience too. If you wanted a Switch 2, you were able to get a Switch 2. Now, granted, that doesn't necessarily mean that those who couldn't afford it got one anyway, so that is still a factor again. But point is, though, the sales that would have initially gone that in many cases before, Nintendo stockpiled systems for the end of the year. In this case, it seems like they didn't need to, or if they did, it didn't matter because people have already been able to buy a Switch 2 regardless. So that may have affected the end of the year sales. Furthermore, though, another point that the employee brings up is that there wasn't the absence of a major Western game, because unfortunately, Metroid Prime 4 just isn't it. Not because of what that game is. That's just Metroid. It has its niche, but I know, I'm sorry, John, but that's just not a huge selling game series in general, right?
I've come to accept, and real Metroid fans are aware we'll never be quite successful.
So do you think that all makes sense then, John? Do you like that those are the main reasons for why that people may have already owned the Switch 2? I mean, in fact, real quick, like I think part of the reason why it's done better in Japan is because it had, or seemingly done better in Japan relative to before, is because it's been harder to get one in Japan. Stock has been more limited there, and there's been higher demand for it, which is probably why we saw a more smooth sale rate through the holiday season, which again is why we didn't see it here in the Western countries.
Yeah, I think just due to them really wanting to get the U.S. early and like all the Western people early and being well stocked, it was able to satisfy that demand early on rather than people scrambling it for the holiday like Jingle All the Way or something.
Amazing reference. Such a good movie.
Yeah. I thought you would like that.
Put that cookie down!
But yeah, in Japan, it's still hotly desired because, yeah, it's still tight there. It's still, like, people have to do raffles, and the exclusives there are more tailored towards the Japanese audience. I would say a lot of the exclusives that have been coming are very big for Japan.
Yeah, Kirby Air Riders is one example. I think that is kind of more geared toward Japan, though I'm a fan of it as well, and a lot of people are. But I think in particular, if you play online, you'll see a lot of Japanese players, so...
Hyrule Warriors, that's a more Japanese, like, Muso's huge in Japan.
Yeah. That's a good point. So yeah, we didn't have that big Western title. I mean, I think Nintendo may have been gearing Metroid Prime 4 to kind of be that. It just, wasn't. I don't know if there was even a scenario in which it could have been,
Metroid Prime is for Metroid Prime fans.
That's pretty much it.
Because I've been enjoying it. I actually got distracted by another game. But I've been super enjoying it. I think a lot of the hate around that game was Western audiences who don't understand Metroid. So, so that's the exact issue at hand. It's like Metroid's not the Western game.
I mean,
Mario Kart is more, but like even then, Mario Kart's just Mario Kart.
Mario Kart's huge no matter what. But it's almost sad to say old news at this point. But it's been out for what 6-7 months, and so it wasn't It was already driving Switch 2 hardware, which might explain why it didn't get a major boost in December, or November or December. In any case, John, do you think any of this spells concerns for the future of the Switch 2, at least from Nintendo's perspective?
Probably they might be like a touch more sensitive, but like I can't see them being like hugely concerned. I think they're probably more concerned on like what crazy things are going to happen in the world. By the end of the, they're like,
will there still be a world in the few years from now? Will there
still be a world? We'll see.
Yeah, honestly, I can't see Nintendo being too upset by this, considering the fact that it is still a record-breaking system and is still on track to continue to be. But at the same time, it could be, a possible warning sign that maybe momentum's not going to continue at the same rate that it has. Because there was a lot of pent-up demand for the Switch 2. People were asking for the Switch 2 years ago, and I think all that reflected in the first several months of sales. And now we may finally be finally realizing the actual baseline of the system, in which case, only new software will drive it. And I will say, we have a lot of games coming up on the horizon. I don't think there's a ton of huge games, like a lot of games that maybe have their niches and some that may do better than that even. But we don't have like that big game we're looking forward to yet. So I think the next Direct is really going to help shape, the future, the possible, give us a better idea of what the future momentum of the Switch 2 could be. But again, economic factors could still impact that too. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, yeah.
Yeah, I think for third parties, this is going to be the year of Switch 2 editions. Quick, easy buck. And I think that may help comfort Switch 1 players and be like, okay, I'm being supported going into the next console. Because, getting a better version of your game is never a bad thing.
It'd be so smart because you can even reach owners who had the Switch 1 but ignored your game originally. Maybe that would engender interest in it on the Switch too, especially now that it runs better. There's plenty of games on Switch that didn't run great. They can revisit and make it, actually perform well on Switch too. Not even counting new ports.
I've been playing Immortal Phoenix Rising. It was like $4.
Pretty good.
And I was just thinking, it's like, man, a Switch 2 edition of this would be fire. Ubisoft, if you're listening, don't give up on that game.
Kind of surprised that they haven't done that already, because they're usually, and they have been a big supporter of Switch 2 and continue to be, but that seems like an easy in for them there, right? So maybe
do that with the Rabbids games, like easy win.
That would be. All right, John, any final thoughts on Switch 2 sales, or are we about wrapped up here?
I think we're good. I think this is like not too much. As a consumer, I don't need to worry about this. I want games. That's such a good point. For one, some YouTubers, and I'll admit, even maybe our own thumbnail, are going to make a bigger deal about this than it actually is. Beyond this video, we're not going to be covering this unless more bad reports come out. But like, some YouTubers will portray this as, or not just YouTubers, but people in general, will portray this as like, Switch 2 is doomed, it's dying, it's a dead console, which it couldn't be more off the mark. Like, yeah, its momentum may be faltering a little bit, but that doesn't really mean anything right now. It's still selling a massive amount. It could mean something in the future, but for right now, it's a blip on the radar. So we'll have to wait and see how things shake out. But I wouldn't be too worried if I were Nintendo right now. As long as they have compelling software coming, it'll continue to be a non-issue. This thing has already outsold the Wii U, right? So, like, no matter what, it's not a disaster on any level, so... Alright, and it can't be. So, with that, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Switch 2, of course, and everything Nintendo, and we'll catch you later. Hopefully no more videos today. It's been a very busy day. And what are you pointing to there, John? Your dead Mario there? Dead Mario. All right.
All right, bye, everyone.
Goodbye.